Good morning. Welcome to the Crow Wing County Board meeting. Would you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, would you like to do a roll call?
Commissioner Coring?
Here.
Commissioner Lubke?
Here.
Commissioner Barrows?
Here.
Commissioner Franzine?
Here.
Commissioner Hoag?
Here.
All members are present.
Thank you. No one has signed up for open forum. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak who didn't sign? Hearing none. Review and approval of the minutes from March 28th.
Motion to approve. I will second that, Madam Chair.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Barrows, second by Commissioner Lubke. Is there any discussion? Hearing none.
Commissioner Lubke?
Aye.
Commissioner Coring?
Aye.
Commissioner Barrows?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoag?
Aye.
Commissioner Franzine?
Aye, motion carries. Review and approval of today's agenda. There are no changes. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve today's agenda.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
Motion by Commissioner Hoag, second by Commissioner Lugby. All those in favor?
Commissioner Coring?
Aye.
Commissioner Barrows?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoag? Commissioner Lubke?
Aye.
Commissioner Franzine?
Aye, motion carries. Consent agenda.
Make the motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Barrows, second by Commissioner Hoag. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Commissioner Barrows?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoag?
Aye.
Commissioner Lubke?
Aye.
Commissioner Coring?
Aye.
Commissioner Franzine?
Aye, motion carries. Community services. Morning.
Good morning. As you know, I am Stephanie Shook with the County Attorney's Office. One of the things that I've been helping is with public health nuisances. This is Bethany Ingram. She is the point person, really, who's been handling all of this in a partnership. And we have 2 properties that we need to discuss today.
Good morning. I'm bringing forward 2 properties today in which, upon investigation, it has been determined that there is a public health nuisance that exists. The first property is located at the 3200 block of Meadowview Road in Brainerd. This property had a previous abatement back in November 3rd of 22. It was a removal of a large accumulation of refuse. During the previous abatement, it was recognized that there existed a failed septic system. It must be replaced. The system blowout can be seen in the images above. Its proximity to a well that serves multiple homes in the area is of a concern. The property owner signed a contract in which he agreed to remove the pump tank and have a monthly pump schedule from a licensed professional until a new system can be replaced or installed after the winter thaw. The property owner has failed to both remove the pump tank and comply with the most recent 2 pumping schedules. A locked gate prevents the contracted professional entry into the scheduled times. We're seeking permission from the board to hire the removal of the pump tank and pumping contract.
And also, if he fails to move forward with the installation of the septic system, then we would do that as an abatement as well, so that that process is done in an appropriate time frame.
Are there any questions?
Did you say we would install the septic?
We would have to contract, and that would be an additional abatement. And we're going to ask that that be included in this resolution, that we have the ability to go and do that, based unfortunately on them not cooperating with the pumping and those concerns. That is what we believe is necessary. With respect to that, we have been working with Land Services with funding and being able to notify them of sources of funding. Something that came up, you may recall, Mr. Connolly was the property owner, and he had come in to contest the public health nuisance previously. He has since sold the property. It was sold a few days prior to us going in and doing the actual cleanup, and so that is who we have been working with. So although it changed hands, everything still has continued. We took, I think it was 26 roll-offs and 11 semi-loads off the property.
Maybe one other, I'm sorry, but, so how does that affect the new owner?
It
The
bec-
cost of these cleanups?
Everything is abated to the property, so it runs with the property and not with the owner. So it is assessed to the taxes, and so the new owner is responsible.
And the new owner knew that going into this?
Their hope had been that it would give them an additional 10 months. They had a misunderstanding, I think, with possibly what a septic timeline would be. And we indicated it runs with the property. We don't have to wait because the notice was previously given and we went through all the legal proper channels. So he walked in knowing that all of the stuff on the property was going to have to be removed. And we did work with him to allow them to keep some things that we didn't feel it was absolutely necessary. But we did leave quite a few vehicles, and a garage was allowed to be filled. It had already a lot of stuff in it. We weren't able to get like under the deck, but we did work with him as well as Mr. Connolly, because Mr. Connolly still resides at the residence. He hasn't vacated the property.
Gosh, okay. That's all.
Okay, anyone else?
Madam Chair, hearing no other discussion, I'll make the motion to approve the resolution that's attached with the septic system as part of that resolution.
Second, Coring.
We have a motion by Commissioner Barrows, second by Commissioner Coring. All those in favor?
Commissioner Hoag,
Aye.
Commissioner Lubke,
Aye.
Commissioner Coring,
Aye.
Commissioner Barrows,
Aye.
Commissioner Franzine.
Aye, motion carries. Now Fawn Street in Crosby.
Yes, thank you. The second property is located at the 18,000 block Fawn Street in Trommeld. The property came to us through a reporter concerned about animal hoarding situations inside the home. Upon site visit, there is a highly evident odor that does emanate from this property that can best be described as high-level ammonia and animal fecal matter. Dependent upon weather factors, this odor resides heavily near the primary door of the property, and we have reports that this odor does breach the property boundaries and roadways. Upon investigation, we discovered a growing accumulation of garbage outside the primary door as seen in the photos. We have requested this be cleaned up. I did get a report just as this meeting was started that she has cleaned that up. However, the ongoing concern is that she does not have garbage service. So we continue to monitor that situation. I have not seen the cleanup. I've requested access into the home on multiple occasions to establish that the living conditions for the resident and animals are appropriate and that they're well maintained and cared for. We have been denied entry thus far. We're seeking permission from the board to abate the source of the strong odor as well as ensure that the garbage is cleaned up.
I would also note that this is a little different than a typical case. The owner of the property actually passed away in December of '21. We believe that the current tenant does not have a lease. The property was foreclosed upon. A sheriff's sale commenced last October. The redemption period for that is April 23rd. The current resident has been given notice of when she has to vacate. The property is now owned through the sale of the sheriff's certificate by the Minnesota Housing Agency. We have been in contact with them. They unfortunately cannot do anything with the property until the redemption period has expired. But they have indicated that upon her vacating, as well as that date coming forward, then they will take over the cleanup. But we are talking about, she has pet rats, and we're talking probably at least 200 of them.
I'm sorry, did you say pet rats?
I did.
Okay, that's a first.
Madam Chair, if I might ask, does Crosby have a limit on the number of pets you can have,
This is within the city of Trommeled.
or Trommeled?
It's a
Okay.
Crosby address.
Okay.
But I don't believe there is any ordinance of any kind. I don't think there's a restriction. But based on also the information that she provided with respect to disposal of the animal fecal matter, she doesn't use wood shavings. The information that we've received is that she uses some type of cloth or possibly fleece and then dumps the excrement into a toilet, but then just washes the cloth or whatever she's using within the cages to line the cages and just re-washes those.
So they are in cages?
We don't have confirmation of that because we haven't actually been inside the residence. But it is a small house, and if there are, we believe, the 200, she would need a lot of cages to house that many.
I do know that there has been accidental litters indicating that they do escape their cages.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
did I mishear? I think I heard it twice, but am I mishearing that? 200 rats?
Commissioner Coring, that is correct. I believe
Oh, my
there were
Lord.
approximately 160 or 180 last year, and someone, she got a rescue, and they took, I believe, 60 or 80 of the pet rats last year.
They removed 160 rats
Oh.
last year and left her with approximately 40. She has now returned to the previous number, if not gone beyond.
Madam Chair, hearing no further discussion, I'll approve the resolution that's attached for declaring a public health nuisance at 18130 Fawn Street, Crosby, Minnesota.
Second, Coring.
Motion by Commissioner Barrows, second by Commissioner Coring. All those in favor?
Commissioner Lubke,
Aye.
Commissioner Coring,
Aye.
Commissioner Barrows,
Aye.
Commissioner Hoag,
Aye.
Commissioner Franzen.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Seth.
Just when you thought you heard it all.
Wow.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. Madam Chair, Commissioners, this morning the first thing we have for you is to seek your approval to distribute the surplus from the tax forfeited land sale and timber sales. This year we had a total of almost $3 million in revenues. And we had $1.8 million in expenditures, so that leaves us with just north of $1 million to be apportioned. Typically, you could say about 800,000 to 900,000 keeps the lights on for all the efforts that we have in our forestry and parks recreation area that we do throughout the county. And then things like building new trails or investing in equipment, park pavilions, things like that, are when we have mostly money when we can do them. But what you see on the apportionment sheet there, that this year we budgeted about $90,000 to go into the county rec fund, and with this amount of apportionment, that'll actually be 157, or basically 158,000. About 368,000 into our CIP, or buildings improvement fund. This would then leave 210 for the general fund, and then just about 315,000 to be distributed back to schools and townships and cities. I do have a breakdown there if somebody wanted to hit that. That would show you where that 315,000 goes. So you kind of have a little bit of a better understanding where that, which school districts, cities, and townships this year would be getting that money.
Oh, on the
Oh,
doc
yeah.
cam? There's nothing over there.
Did you want the sheet that you gave me, Gary?
Yeah, yes, Tim. So you'll see just a big line there. It's a little bit, you'll see like the city of 50 Lakes received a little more than 15,000. A lot of timber activity this year in the city of 50 Lakes. So how that is, where those numbers come from is how much land or timber was sold in the specific municipality. So if you go down to the bottom, there should be a blue line on there, Tim. Those are all the school districts, and if you think of a school district, they're a lot wide, a lot larger of an area. So you'll see like the school district of Brainerd's is 34,000, Crosby's almost 60,000. So it's kind of a really neat, I want to say, story to tell that this isn't taking money out of folks' pockets this time. It's off of a renewable resource and trying to take land that unfortunately has been forfeited and one, get it back on the tax rolls, and then, put the money into these programs here. With that, take any questions on how the apportionment works or anything?
Madam Chair, I guess I do have.
I didn't know if, you want to go, Paul?
Go ahead.
So Gary, when you do that, do these jurisdictions know and the school districts know that this money's coming in? Do they have any way of budgeting for these dollars coming in? It's just like a windfall to them then when it comes into theirs?
I would say there's no real way to tell them how much we're going to get. When we do our own budget,
Right.
It is a forecast. So, we try to be a little bit on the conservative side, so we don't think we're going to get 5 million in and only get 2 million in, then we don't have enough money to run the operation. But there's, like, every time we do a timber harvest or sale, that contractor has 2 years permit to cut it. So we don't know if they're going to cut it in year 1 or year 2. When we do the spring auction, our budget's already set, but and the fall auction. So if the price of aspen goes up 15%, we didn't budget for that, but that would be more than what we'd anticipated. But there's no real good way to forecast for a municipality or a school district to really tell them this is how much you're going to get.
So when they get it, they just have to look at it and say, this is a windfall for us, and we don't know if we're going to get it next year. It's kind of like a lot of things happen in a small city with stuff that happens from the state. Some years we'll get it, some years we won't.
Correct.
And so it's just okay.
Yep.
That's all I want to know, if they had any idea it was coming.
No.
No, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion to approve?
I will make that motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Lubke, excuse me, second by Commissioner Barrows. All those in favor?
Commissioner Coring,
Aye.
Commissioner Barrows,
Aye.
Commissioner Hoag,
Aye.
Commissioner Lubke,
Aye.
Commissioner Franzen.
Aye, motion carries. Lake Improvement Districts.
The second thing, I'll have Jessica walk you through. We had the lid policy in front of you, it was the last meeting or 2 meetings ago, I think it actually was. And we had some questions on lids that were existing versus new ones that were going to be created. And I got to tell you, we've done a little bit of, it just is what it is. Sometimes we learn as well as things arise. And so we have a couple of changes that we're proposing today that we didn't have a few weeks ago based on further investigation with Stephanie Shook's help from our attorney's office and Tim's guidance from our administrator's office.
So yes, excuse me, working with Stephanie from the attorney's office, we thought it would be best to break our lid policy into essentially 2 policies. We had the Crow Wing County lid policy before, and within that policy there was tidbits in there or sections in there on statutes and rules on establishing a lid. So going through that, it was broken out to be what you'll see in your packet as now we have a lake improvement district policy and an establishment policy. And we just thought that would be easier and for the either a new proposed lid or a current lid to follow if we had 2 different policies. We had a lot of fact sheets out there and checklists, so that has been incorporated into the lid establishment policy. So we'll have less fact sheets. It'll all be in one policy. In the actual lake improvement district policy, there is no changes. There's one change, sorry. We did add in the caveat of under the voting procedures, it says, unless otherwise specified in their establishment petition, voting shall proceed as follows. And that was what was questioned at the last meeting. And it was found that if they did establish their assessing or voting procedures in a certain way in their establishment documents, they can follow those. They do not have to convert over to what our current policy states. So we did add that caveat. And then in the establishment policy, we just called out that we would like the designation of 3 temporary directors to act until their first official meeting of an established lid, just so that we know who our point people are to reach out to if we have questions. Otherwise, there is nothing else new within the policies. It's just broken out into 2 separate now.
Any questions?
Stephanie, do you have anything to add?
I think it just made, like Jessica said, more sense to do 2. It makes it clear with respect to voting and assessing. I went through all of the current lids that we have to make sure what we were doing made sense. If there's another lid that gets established, we will be revamping the resolution and making sure that it's consistent. And the other thing that planned to happen is that the Minnesota rules as well as the Minnesota statute that define and guide on lake improvement districts, there will be a direct link from our website in the area where the LID information is, so that they have a direct route to see what the statutes and the rules are and how they are required to follow.
Anyone else? Can I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll make the motion to approve the proposed LID policy revisions as written and revised by the County Land Services and attorney staff.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Barrows, second by Commissioner Hoag. All those in favor?
Commissioner Barrows,
Aye.
Commissioner Hoag,
Aye.
Commissioner Lubke,
Aye.
Commissioner Coring,
Aye.
Commissioner Franzine.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is the county engineer. Good
We
morning.
have seating arrangement here. No, I'm gonna do my laser pointer tricks and didn't want to accidentally shoot you. Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. We have 2 items for you today. We're going to start with the Highway Improvement Plan for this year. And Therese, if you could bring up the summary for me. This is a follow-on conversation that we started this year on March 7th, where the Transportation Advisory Committee meeting met. We presented a lot of information, about 3 or 4 hours of captive audience with a bunch of information. And you and your citizen representatives have had the information for 5 to 6 weeks now. We've taken your comments and incorporated them into the final draft of the 2023 to 2027 Highway Improvement Plan. And so I'll do a brief summary, and feel free to stop me at any time. So starting with the cover page, that is actually the last year's roundabout at Beaver Dam and Wise Road. We're very proud of that, and I'm very proud of our team for delivering that. I want to highlight that whenever I can. This is a great amenity for the public, and we're happy to report that the rest of the road will be done this year as soon as the spring continues to progress. Do I have control of this?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, next slide. So here's a summary of everything that's contained within the 5-year plan. And to summarize, $87.2 million of total investment. That includes the engineering and right-of-way and some other components that are actually contribute or complement the actual what you see on the road. And of that, $8.1 million worth of federal money. It says federal transportation bill, but it also includes programs that are supported by that. We've gotten a couple of federal grants in Cross Lake, for example. We've got some highway safety money, and then the normal channels of getting block grants right from the transportation bill. So that's a little bit elevated. We average about $1 million per year. So that's a little bit over 1 per year. The next line is $27.7 million worth of county state aid. This is what the portion that we get when we pay at the pump and pay our license tabs and sales tax on vehicles and things like that. That's the portion that comes to us. And the next one is the county road and bridge levy, $1.2 million. Look at the big difference between what we're going to spend in 5 years from what we collect from property taxes on the roadways compared to the other sources. I think we are at about 4 cents on every dollar that a person pays in property taxes comes to the Highway, Road, and Bridge Fund. And only a portion of that goes to the roads because we have these other sources. The next is $3.7 million in the First Assessment District. This is the FAD, of course. It has its own road and bridge levy, and we are going to spend, approaching $4 million over the next 5 years to get that system, do its mill and overlays and road repairs and things there. Local option sales tax, $43.3 million. So that's the largest chunk of it, and it continues to overperform, and we continue to maximize its utilization. And then some bridge bonding opportunities, a small amount there. And then one of the things we pride ourselves on are being able to be a local partner. So some of these smaller townships and cities, we invite them on to enjoy our economy of scale savings that we can provide. You can imagine paving 1 mile of road is probably a lot more expensive than paving 44 miles of road, and we can get a better pricing for that. We invite them to join us. And so that number, 2.4, is what they're contributing on their own system. And then all of it encompasses 150 miles of surface improvements. That's about an average number over the last 5 years or so. We're able to do a lot with that funding above it. And it also includes 5 roundabouts. 4 are going in this year. And so we have a very busy season with that. And then 4 bridge replacements over the course of the next 5 years. Any questions or comments on that? Okay.
Can you tell us where the 5 roundabouts are?
Ooh, now that's good. Okay. The 4 this year are going to be, first of all, with our local partners, Nisswa, which is right at the front gate of Grandview Lodge. So they were able to successfully get about $900 of state money to advance that. Another one with our local partners, Baxter, at the extension of Cypress Drive. Cypress does not quite go all the way to Cassaw 48 on the southern part of Baxter, kind of by BPU. And they're pushing that roadway through. And the connection with 48 will be a roundabout that has been let, and they're eager to get started. And then delivering with our own staff. One will be at the intersection of Trunk Highway 210 and 31 in Crosby. This was very deliberate when Super One decided to build their new building there, and we knew that the traffic patterns were going to change. We had sought some additional funds too, and we were able to get that in time to get something shortly after they opened. Of course, Super One's operating. And the other one we're doing this year is at south of Cross Lake at CASA 3 and 11. This is by Napa. And this intersection has a tradition of serious and fatal crashes, and we're happy to be able to get this in there. And so all of these probably going to be starting about the same time. All of the projects that are scheduled for this year are going to involve a detour. And so there's going to be a lot of traffic snarls, and we ask for the public's patience on that. The fifth roundabout, and I can get to that, is at the intersection of 3 and 4, the Y store or the Y bar or whatever you want to call it there, north of Merrifield. That's scheduled for next year, and we're busy designing that.
Madam Chair.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Tim, $900,000 for the Grandview one, correct?
That was thank you for asking. That was the grant amount. The actual bid
Right.
amount is much higher than that.
Right. I think I heard you say $900.
Oh, wow, no, not 900. $917,000.
A small roundabout.
Micro roundabout. No, that was thank you for correcting me. $917,000 was the state grant that helped them advance it in our 5-year program. The actual finished product may be closer to 1.5 or a little bit less maybe. Any other questions? Next slide is a graphical representation of all that I said and broken down by year of how many miles of paving and roadway surfacing we're doing. So you can see it's really evenly distributed north and south, east and west. Every district, just about every district gets something. The next slide, please. Oh, I get to do my cool trick, right? Can I advance mine?
No.
Oh, I don't get to do my cool trick this year. Well, what I do, everybody knows my cool trick by now. I've been doing it for the last 10 years, and it's fun. So I like that. So here's our road quality index. This is a graphical indication about the quality, the roughness of the roads that we have. And what I normally do is toggle between what we're planning to do and the roadway conditions. And what you see up here is green is good, and red and oranges and yellows are starting to kind of get past our thresholds and are the ones that we've identified should be in the program. And if you want to toggle between, Therese will implicate Therese this year in my little trick. There you
Yes.
go. Nice and slow. Yeah.
Nice and
And you
slow.
can see where the roadways need to be according to the way we measure with MnDOT and its fancy van, that we're investing almost exclusively in those areas that need it. Okay, next slide. This is where I'm reporting on the deferment elimination process. What I just want to quickly go through this. We're ahead of what I thought, or we thought, was going to be our timeline to eliminate our deferments. And so the elimination of deferments or zero deferments is when we stop kicking the can down the road and saying, the road's in terrible shape, but we can't do anything about it. We don't have the money. Well, we're slowly getting on top of that. We're continually evaluating this. If you look at the black line is what I came before you and said we could do with the local option sales tax, the glide path, the zero deferments, with the money and what we knew about the system at the time. What you see in the colored lines is where we currently are in the number of deferments. So we're ahead of schedule, it looks like, on this thing. Like with anything, the last few bits can be the hardest to get. We're doing some reconstruction that in some areas, particularly this year, that lets us do less mill and overlay work, which would be able to address more mileage. So it's flattening out here at the end, you can see on all three curves. Any questions about that? Okay, next slide. We also report on the changes every year that you may see compared to the last 5-year highway improvement plan. As I've stated many times, this is a promise to the public, and we don't smooth things backwards. It's either going to be delivered in the year that we said or sooner. And I'm proud to say that that has happened for a decade or more, and we're continuing on that path. A couple of maybe the most notable changes, and we discussed this at the Transportation Advisory Committee meeting, and I would expect that in one of the next meetings. The city of Cross Lake, we were in a partnership with them last year. They were doing they were doing sewer in the north part of CSAH 66. We had some curb and gutter and some storm sewer, and of course the surfacing that we were participating in. But they front-ended the money, and with an agreement, they said the agreement said that we would pay them our portion no later than 2024. They've written a letter requesting to have it in 2023. All of the funding, and I think it's $600,000, Rob? Mm-hmm. $600,000. We are able to do that in our program. We built that into the 5-year plan, and we showed you that on March 1st. That will come for your official consideration, I believe, in May, the first part of May. It will come in the form of a budget amendment to be able to advance them 1 year sooner. We owe them the money. The project is done. We're satisfied with it. They're just looking for their finances to be able to have it sooner. So that's one change, and that's captured. We try to capture those larger expenditures in the 5-year plan too. And the other notable is that we are currently doing a study about a couple bridges. We've gotten the preliminary results for the one in Cross Lake. We were looking to see whether to build a whole new bridge or just redeck it. And that came back as just redecking it or rehab rather than a replacement. But we've also been starting to really lean ahead and look forward to Mill Avenue Bridge. This is the one north on Mill Avenue by the paper mill. It's 75 years old. It's showing its age. It's very narrow. It doesn't accommodate some of the pedestrian things.
Madam Chair, if I might interject, being 75 years old isn't showing your age.
You're in much better shape than the bridge.
Only if you're a bridge.
That one's 70, in terms of the age of bridges, 75 when they were building them then, that's about what they're looking for. We're building bridges now. We're hoping they'll last, 100 years. And we just know that was part of the study too, kind of a similar thing. Do we put a bunch of money into rehab, or is it something that we should be looking at a replacement in the future? We have not gotten the results of that yet. By that time, we probably have another 10 or 15 years before, if we just leave it the way it is, that it needs to be replaced. And so we talked about this at the Transportation Advisory Committee meeting to kind of commit funds to that. We know it's going to be a large expenditure. We know that we might be able to get some federal or state funds for it, but that's not a guarantee. So we'd like to utilize some of the local option sales tax to be kind of building a fund balance for that large expenditure. It's going to be after I'm gone. If it's 15 years, I will not be here. And so it's really for my successor that will have to deal with that. And I think it's prudent to start putting that money towards something that's going to be a large expenditure. It will benefit the taxpayers and whoever's sitting in these seats in 10 or 15 years.
What do you
Tim,
think?
have you been doing that already at all with that project?
We have not been doing it for the Mill Avenue Bridge. This is the same approach we took for the County Road 115 project. So several years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, we started a couple $100,000 or $500,000, kind of putting it specifically and overtly putting it in the fund balance so we could level the peaks and valleys this year. Because if we had not done that, we would be doing County Road 115 and that's it. That's all we could afford. Now with that foresight, we can do all of the other things that we need to do this year, keep on top of keeping the pavements up, and also afford those larger projects. This is what we're trying to do here.
So it's not at all listed in your your CASA deferment at all in your budgeting? You're out budgeting, or you're showing here in your deferments where we're ahead of the curve in our deferments. There's no monies going in there for that long-range project. The only thing you're showing in deferments is just what we're spending the money on.
Those are miles. So how many miles we're taking. So if we do this, if we have the expenditure, that curve could slow. We could do less mill and overlays, so we might get to our zero deferment goal later.
Okay.
But I think the benefit is that we are overtly spending for a large expenditure coming up in the future.
And we're still delivering on the promises that we've already made.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Jim, give us an idea of how much that bridge would cost us.
I think the latest estimate was it 7 million? Rob can correct me. And then, but by the time cost of money, 15 years, from 7 million now. Time cost of money, probably 15 million, 15 years from now. Did I get that right?
Yep, that sounds pretty close. We're also putting money away for the studies, the environmental, the
Yep,
design,
right.
all that.
Right, so even though that's a good point, is that there's going to be environmental work. You're crossing the Mississippi River Bridge, environmental protection, and all of the things that you have to consider will be costly too. And so even if we get some funding for the actual bridge construction from federal state sources, it's the engineering and things like that are often a local cost, and so we'll be saving for that also.
Thank you.
Next slide. So here, just a summary of what's happening this year in 2023. The biggest noteworthy thing there is the south side of County Road 115. That contract was actually let last year. It was a 2-year contract, or 2+ year contract. This year will be the south half, and next year will be the north half of 115. We're very excited about that. It's been about a 9-year journey to get where we're at, and we're excited to get it done, and hopefully the residents are excited too. It will get worse before it gets better. It's when we're tearing up a road, and these properties are highly used. The road is fairly busy, and there's a boat ramp there. We ask again for the public's patience as we get that going.
And those folks who are using County Road 115 or 127 as a cut across to get from 4 over to 371, it would be a good idea that they find an alternate route this summer.
Absolutely. There'll be a detour associated with this, primarily using the north side. If you get that far, we wouldn't even want you to go that far. There will be days where it will absolutely be impassable. We're putting in storm sewer, we're trench cutting, and it will be absolutely impossible. There'll be plenty of signage, and we will still have people that get right up to it, not believing. And we hope we can minimize that. But it's going to be tough, but we're going to all be very excited when it's done. So this is this year. The 4 roundabouts are on there. There's a couple bridge replacements and all the mill and overlays. Any questions about that one? That's just this year. All the majority of these projects are already awarded. We have a couple that have lingered because of some of the federal and other processes we've had to go through. Next slide. And this just real quickly is what we call the out year. So 2027 is the 2 bookends. I gave you the front bookend. This is the back bookend. This is what we're promising for 2027. And it'll likely grow over time as money becomes available. A lot of times we don't know when the federal funding, for example, is there. It might come 2 years before the actual construction year. So this is just a look into 2027. We've done the accounting and finances to make sure that we can deliver this promise in 2027. Questions about that one? In the first assessment district, we of course have a 5-year plan for that. I got a question about that this morning, if we're doing 5-year planning for the first assessment district, and absolutely. This is a great thing that we provide this township level of government. Here's what's happening in the 5 years, again, color-coded graphical. And this is I believe it was a $3.4 million. These are the roads that they're going to be spent on. Next slide. Here's and here's the mileage of those. It's not a lot of mileage. There's about 60 miles out there. It's very fractured and all over the place. That 2.7 miles this year might include, well, includes like 6 or 7 different roadway names. We also do the thing, the ride quality index, if you want to do your magic. Not that.
I don't know. Here to here?
I'm sorry, I have a couple slides apart. So anyway, the point is we're those red and orange are where we're spending the money. We're spending them in the appropriate places. Okay, any questions about those? The first assessment district? Next slide. Here, just local option sales tax. This is where we've spent the money over the last 5 years. And these are the roads we probably could not have done without the local option sales tax. Next, please. And here's the same. This is what we've done since 2018 in the first assessment district. And here's all the projects with all the funding sources over the last 5 years. So this, I don't know, this speaks for itself. We're spending a lot of money, we're doing a lot of hard work, and I think people are noticing that these pavements are a lot smoother than they have been in the past. Next slide, getting near the end, I think. Oh, yeah, right near the end. Any question? Next slide. And then, any questions? Concerns?
Madam Chair, it's kind of, I know it was discussed, you know, on that 115 project, that's just going to be really, for the citizens up there, it's going to be really confusing for quite a while.
Yes.
We talked about maybe, is there any way we have the ability to have for anybody who'd like to, where we could send them an alert, something like that? Have we looked at that a little bit, you know, where you could be on a, you know, like I have it on my email stuff, you know, if something comes up, alert me on it. You know, would that help at all? Because there might be a time where they can access their, up to a fire number this way, they can access it on what's there on 371 side, but there's going to be times where they're going to have to come on around the back side, you know. Is there any way that we can work with those, something we have in our system where we can help them, those people that live there? Because it's, you know, coming home on 371 and then all of a sudden realizing you got to go all the way around, it would have been nice to know before you left Brainerd.
Absolutely. Well,
And I don't know if there's something out there.
There is, and we've been actively working on it. We've been working on a communication plan. We have gotten extreme amount of help from John Bowen, and he has access to those alerts, and we're utilizing the Crow Wing County alert system. We are sending out letters to the residents.
Good.
We just got notification this morning that John was able to create a QR code where people could sign up for the alert. We are using an alert system. They'll be able to sign up for texts, which are really the standard nowadays for immediate email. We're going to continue to do press releases and those things, social media and those things. So we're really understanding that this is going to be a snarl for those out there, both residents and other users. And we're hoping that we can leverage this for future projects too. So this is the first one. We're leveraging the talents of the PAO, Darcy Dwyer, and she's really helping us through that and coordinate with John. And we're really trying hard, more than ever before, to communicate with the residents out there. So look forward to that letter. We're also going to put that QR code out on social media, I'm assuming, and some other channels, so those that aren't going to get the letters, we can't mail a letter to every resident in Crow Wing County who might use it, we'll make it available so those people can sign up for alerts too. So thank you for asking.
Especially when I look at it with either fire or ambulance or anything like that, they should be definitely aware of where they can get to or where they can't get to.
They are. That's a different system that we're internally working at. I know that dispatch will know. I think another thing we did is we actually, despite what you think, you can call Google Earth and tell them to stop showing the road. Rob, if you can elaborate on that, and it works. So, you know, these traveling software, mapping softwares and things like that will give you the best route. You can get it where it will not even include that. And so we've done that too. So and I know a lot of transport and trucking companies, they're pretty religious to put that in, and it will not even show. And I don't know if that's done yet, but Rob,
Not
do you have
done yet.
experience?
We'll do it right when the construction's going to start again. And we used it last year on the Beaver Dam roundabout, and it worked pretty well.
Yeah, it's just a nice tool to have in our toolbox that we didn't have for many years.
Yeah, and no, we were just sitting in a meeting and we're like, geez, can we do this? Yeah, we can do this. And it was kind of like, wow, well, we're going to really, this will be the first one we're really starting to leverage that stuff, and hopefully it'll become a standard moving forward.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion?
So I have in your packet a request for board action for approval of the 2023 to 2027 Highway Improvement Plan. And after this, if approved, we'll work on distributing it, making it available on our website. We have an interactive app that people can go in and look and gather information.
There are
Madam
no,
Chair, I'll make that motion.
all right, is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Lubke, second by Commissioner Barrows. All those in favor?
Commissioner Hoag?
Aye.
Commissioner Lubke?
Aye.
Commissioner Coring?
Aye.
Commissioner Barrows?
Aye.
Commissioner Frenzine?
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you. Excuse me, thank you. The next item we have for Rob is, I want to say, kind of an anomaly for bidding, and we just wanted to, rather than have it on the consent agenda, we wanted to talk about it. It's our striping contract, and Rob is here to talk about that.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Good morning. As Tim said, typically we'll bid a project, we'll put it on the consent agenda, and you will allow us to award the contract. If you may have seen in your board packet, we took bids on our annual pavement marking contract last year. The bid came in at 39% above our estimate, so that's one we need to talk about a little bit. Historically, we've had 3 bidders on our annual pavement marking project, some competition. Since last year's project, all 3 of those have merged into one company, so we only got 1 bid this year. Somewhat of a monopoly, not a lot of competition out there right now. We, as you could see in the board packet, our estimate was about $260,000 for this project, and the bid came in at $360,000, 39% above. We had some inkling about a month ago this might be coming, and talking to other counties, they were getting bids 60% above, and with just the 1 bidder. So in the past month, we've reached out to any company we knew of who has a paint truck, does this type of work, asked them to seriously consider, getting a plan, bidding it. No one did. So pavement markings are something we don't feel we can just, well, let's wait a year and prices will come down. They're a safety component of our system. We need to keep those updated. So we are gonna recommend to you to award the contract still, even at that higher price. We do have a couple partners on this project, City of Baxter and City of Pequot Lakes. But of that 100,000 or so that the bid is above our estimate, about 80,000 of it is the county's. So that would be coming out of our funding. We're the big player of the partners, so we have the majority of the quantities in there. We do the 2 to 3 million linear feet a year of pavement markings, and then there's message painting, arrows, crosswalks, scores, all that other stuff. So a change of a penny or 2 per foot is a change of $30,000 to $40,000 to $50,000. So we are going to be looking at options over the next year. Aside from trying to push some companies we know that do some of this work to get them more seriously involved, we'll be looking at, MnDOT has paint trucks. They do a lot of their own painting, possibly contracting with them. Possibly looking at longer-term pavement markings. You can pay a little more upfront, change the paint type from latex to epoxy to a polymer, groove it in. Like I said, that is an upfront cost, but it does last more years. So we have some options we have to dig into over the next year, so we're not having the same conversation next year. But as I said, we consider this a big safety component on our system, and we feel we need to move forward with it even at that 39% over our estimate. So happy to take any questions.
I just have one comment. I mean, this is we're able to do this and recommend this because of how we manage our finances. We manage a fund balance to be able to handle the peaks and valleys. It'll give us this year to figure out and maybe develop some partnerships where this will be less of a challenge next year. Some of our partners and some of our others might have to make the hard decision because they have not managed their finances well or maintain these fund balances, are choosing between a mill and overlay and this safety thing. And so we get to do both because of the way that we manage our finances and the fund balance in the highway department.
All right.
Madam Chair, have there been any time where the county did their own at one time or not? Did the county always contracted out the striping?
Years ago, we did some of our own striping. It was more of a trailer system than a real painting truck. It admittedly wasn't the best quality. And we used to have a two-man crew that did a lot of the pavement messages, crosswalks, arrows. The contractors, even at this year's bid, are able to do it far more efficient than we are, and then we're not keeping that equipment and paying insurance on it when we use it 5 days a year. So
Right,
we did used to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you think about, well, if they're gonna only have one vendor out there that we can buy from, maybe we should look at doing it in-house, but just running it through my head, having a paint truck, having everything that's involved in it, the maintenance of it, the keeping of it, the product, even though it does seem a little bit way above what you had estimated it'd be, it might be just, that's the way it is.
Right. And the timing. That'd have to be, supported by a staff.
Yeah,
And if they're not if they're painting, they're not crack sealing and then you're outsourcing crack sealing to keep up with your goals and things. So, we'll continue to monitor it. We are not the only county that's concerned about it, and I'm sure there'll be a topic of discussion over the next year, and hopefully we can find some solutions.
Wonder if there might be a regional solution through Sourcewell. 5 counties all have the same need, and maybe that's something that they could lean into. They have done regional kinds of things that we all need. They're doing daycare licensing for us regionally, and so maybe that's a potential. I would like us to at least know what is the cost of doing it ourselves, because it makes good sense to privatize public services when you can save money doing so. It does not make good sense to privatize when it is cheaper for us to do it ourselves. And shame on the private sector if it is cheaper for us to do it ourselves.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve contract 23007.
We have a second.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Lubke, second by Commissioner Barrows. All those in favor?
Commissioner Lubke,
Aye.
Commissioner Coring,
Aye.
Commissioner Barrows.
Aye.
Commissioner Hoag. Aye. Commissioner Franzine.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I don't have anything specific to bring you from the Sheriff's Office other than to advise that we're a little over a week into boarding inmates from Stearns County over at our jail, opening up that new pod. If you have any specific questions on that, I urge you to reach out to Captain Fosteson to see how that's going. I haven't heard anything, so no news is generally good news, but I'm sure there's some growing pains adjusting to having 30-ish new inmates over there. Looking outside, last week we weren't prepared to experience soft water on our lakes for maybe till June, but this week obviously our weather has changed, so we're keeping tabs on that. This is a tough time of year as far as having people go out onto the ice. Looks safe, still pretty thick, but it's really, really questionable. We're going to start seeing the water or the ice pulling away from shore with this warm runoff, so it should happen pretty rapidly. Like I said, we're just keeping tabs on that, and as proactive as we can be is just putting out social media advisements. So entertain any questions that you might have for the Sheriff's Office. Otherwise, that's all I had.
Anyone?
Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
County Attorney.
Well, that's more than I have for you, Madam Chairman, but I would entertain any questions anyone might have for me.
Any questions?
Yeah, no, Madam Chair, I guess I do have a question for Don. Don, how is the backlog? I know that during COVID, obviously, there was a backlog. Is the backlog getting kind of cleaned out? I know you've got at least one, if not two murder trials, and they haven't started yet, so I just was kind of wondering if the backlog is still holding you back, or could you give us an update on that if you don't mind?
Unfortunately, Commissioner Corin, we have 3 first-degree murder trials pending in our office right now.
Okay.
Mr. Mosier's case being the oldest is set for trial in December. Mr. Munger being the middle of the 3 is set to go to trial next month. And currently, there is no trial date in the LaFlex case, but there is an omnibus hearing coming up here in approximately 3 to 4 weeks. I don't remember the date. Other than those older cases, we do still have a number of cases that back up prior to COVID or into COVID, but for the most part, happy to report in Crow Wing County that we're catching up really well. And we're seeing our numbers in our office go down from the COVID highs.
Oh, great. Sounds good. Thanks, Don.
Yep.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. County Administrator.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, there was no senior management team meeting yesterday. We used the time to do interviews for our HR director. That team's going to be reconvening this afternoon to continue those deliberations. So hopefully we'll have an answer by the end of the week. And I would just pony off of what the county attorney has said. It's about time for our quarterly report. So we'll give you a specific listing of where we're at with land use enforcement cases, short-term rental enforcement cases, and those. So that report should be coming out very shortly too, to help you get an understanding of where that backlog is in those 2 specific areas. But I agree with Don. We're making very good progress in that regard, and so quite happy with where we're at.
All right. Thank you. There was
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, a question for the county administrator. I know that we received a resignation letter from our finance director. A question to Tim. That's obviously that's an important position, like all the senior management team positions is an important position. I guess my question is, are you looking for direction on how the county board would like to proceed forward with, if we're going to do the same as we've directed you for the human resources director, or if the county board is seeing fit to do the interviews themselves? I guess I'm wondering if you're looking for direction on that.
I am going to be looking for direction. I was planning on Thursday at Budget Committee, but I'm happy to do that now if that's your wishes.
Okay, I can wait till I can just tell you what my, if where I'm at, and the rest of the board members can decide that on Thursday, I guess. But I guess I feel comfortable using the same process that you're going through with the human resources director, of going through that same process on the finance director. Like I said, the other county board members don't need to weigh in today. I mean, it's up to them. But I'm just letting you know where I'm at. But if the rest of the board members think we need to go a different direction, I can go either direction. It's fine with me.
Any other questions for our administrator? Hearing none, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Barrow, second by Commissioner Held. All those in favor?
Commissioner Coring,
Aye.
Commissioner Barrows,
Aye.
Commissioner Hogg,
Aye.
Commissioner Lubke,
Aye.
Commissioner Franzine.
Aye, motion carries. We are adjourned.